Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Barb. I'm really glad to have you here. Today, I want to talk about something we all experience. I want to talk about wants, about wanting, and about the edge that wanting often brings us to. A couple of weeks ago, I wrote about this in my blog, and I got a lot of response, a lot of engagement, a lot of people that relate it to what I shared. And I thought I want to bring it here and spend a little bit more time talking about it and exploring it together with all of you. And ultimately, all humans, all of us, whether it's in relationship, in school, in our work, our lives, we have wants and we have this desire to want to grow or to have more intimacy or connection to create things. And at some point along our history around wants or new wants that will come up, we will often come face to face with the places inside of us that actually resist. You know, we can sit in that place of excitement and desire about it, and then notice that we're not really taking action towards it. And this has been a question that, for me personally, has been something that I've spent a lot of time wondering about and angsting about and looking at myself around. And often I would draw the conclusion that, the fact that I wanted it but couldn't get it meant something about me, about my character, about my psychology, about my personality. And really what I want to explore today is how the not moving in the direction of the want or this kind of place where it looks like, it's a struggle to create. What if it's not a sign of failure? What if it's not self-sabotage? What if it's not evidence that you don't really want it? It's simply what happens when the deeper truth and the heart's desire and a new longing or a new expression, a new potential. What if all that's happening is that comes up against the places inside of us that are still being shaped by old conditioning or being shaped by our past? That feeling of, when a want becomes real, it kind of lands in us. We feel the impulse for it. The want feels alive, it feels true, it feels beautiful. And then something else shows up, a tightening, a constriction, self doubt, second guessing. All of a sudden we're getting all these memories of when we've tried that before and it didn't work. Or sometimes it's just this subtle, uh-oh, I'm not sure I can do this. And that moment is what we're going to explore, because often at this point is when we start to rush to override it, to ignore it, or we try and solve it or just kind of push through. And I am speaking from experience here. I know this very well. For years, anytime someone said to me, well, maybe you just don't want it enough, I would get irritated, and I'd walk away kind of judging myself, like, is that true? At the same time, there was something that just didn't feel true to me about that. Like, I did want it. I wanted it deeply. And there were times that it felt really aligned, like it was a deeper call within me. And I still couldn't move. So wanting wasn't the issue. What I started to see was something simply froze at the edge. I hesitated, I overthought. It shows up in a lot of different ways. And believe me, in my history and my past and all my training, looking at the subconscious, looking at conditioned thought, looking at behavior modification, but there were still some places where none of that seemed effective. And so I would get really puzzled. And it looked like me overcoming and discovering something, getting more clear, all those things where it looked like the potential answer, but the truth was they didn't really lead to new realization or to shifts in behavior. And as I said, some of these wants were still really present. And this is the point at which I started to see that oh, what if it's not a block, or the hesitation doesn't need to be fixed? I don't need to muscle my way through fear or muscle my way through change. Sometimes change is just hard, but you got to work through it. What started to feel more true to me was, what if it's not a sign that you're broken or uncommitted or you're doing something wrong? Like, what if the edge is simply where our past meets our possibility, where conditioning meets consciousness, where our nervous system meets our heart's desires? Both can be true in us: a sincere desire, a call, a nudge to move in a direction, and at the same time, the hesitation, the freeze, the resistance. And maybe you can relate to this, that there's a place where something in us says stop, while something deeper whispers go, keep going. So in that place, again, just to say, this is the edge, or the place in which the want meets the protection. I started to see that, what if it's not the want that scares us, but it's what the want asks of us. That's a mouthful. Let me try it again. So it's not the want that scares us, right? That feels alive, that feels aligned, but it's what it's asking of us to allow us to feel more free internally. Now, before we start talking about what do we do, you know, at that edge. So what do we do? You might be thinking at this point, okay, I freeze, help me. So we're going to get there. But I just want to clarify before we go any further. Not all wants are the same. Some wants come from a really clean, steady, grounded place. Some wants are really basic and easy, like, I want a glass of water, so I go get it. Or, I want to see my sisters, so I call them and we set up some time. Those wants are easy. And some wants are just, they feel grounded inside of us and they feel effortless, and they're true too. And so we move in that direction. But then there are these other wants that are what I like to refer to as more emotionally loaded. They're tied to old memories, to disappointment, to identity, to shame, and maybe to the places in us where we've not been met before, or where we've been told what we want is too much, whatever it might be. So these loaded wants often bring us straight to that edge. They're the ones that bring us to the edge, not because they're wrong, not because we shouldn't want them, but because they touch the parts of us that are not yet free. All of us have a long history with wants, right? Some wants were met, some were ignored, some wants were too much, some wants felt out of reach, out of our league. Some came with ease and grace, some we felt audacious to even say out loud, and some were, tied to disappointment and shame. So no wonder, right? No wonder. I mean, it makes sense that when a want arises, it can come with a mix of thoughts and feelings. And it can, awaken everything in us that once learned to protect against this particular want. Or, as I said earlier, not the want, but what the want is asking of us. And coming back to the clarification around wants, I think if a want looks like it's going to fill a hole, those wants are hard. Like, if we're looking for worthiness, if we're looking for our identity, we're looking to be respected, we're looking to have people think about us in a certain way, or we have our well-being, our peace of mind, our happiness tied to a want, those are going to be especially loaded. And they probably fall into a category which is like, those are going to be hard to do no matter what. And really often they're impossible, because I think we know, like, our deeper wisdom, insight knows that if we're looking to achieve something because it proves we're okay, or it proves to others we deserve to be respected, that those are going to create a lot of angst. And if you kind of can't see yourself getting behind those things with action or movement, I think that's a good thing. So If what you see is wants are tied to proving you're loved, proving you're worthy, proving you deserve to be respected, proving you're safe or happy, those wants, I'm going to encourage you to look in a whole new, different direction. And that's going to be within. That's a different exploration. That's an exploration of, do I know whole and complete are already available and within me? It's innate. Do I understand that peace of mind is found within, not via circumstances? And that exploration has been one of the most powerful ones in my life. And I encourage you to look in that direction if that's what you're discovering. If it looks like well-being, peace, worthiness is on the other side of a want, then where the opportunity for waking up more and evolving more for you might be in looking at your innate well-being, your innate wholeness. But for today, what I'm really talking about is the wants that are alive and aligned and being prompted within us, that then they're not happening, or, we feel stuck or challenged around them, or we're exhausted by them because, no amount of push is kind of getting us there. So again, coming back to that edge, that resistance, that moment of where we, can be in the imagination, but can't seem to be really creating traction. We often have to meet the place in us that is resistant to it, but not from a place of overpowering it, fixing it, and trying to, think your way through it or spiritually bypass it. My go-to response in the past around this, and I think even now I can forget, but has been to try and figure it out, to sort myself out, to sort my psychology out, to sort my thinking out, to sort, am I on the right path? Is it the right thing? Is it the right strategy? And I would do this endlessly, like, endlessly. I could lose days, months, maybe even years. Was this discipline? I just need to be more disciplined. Or is there a pattern? Oh, I'd notice a pattern, and then I try and look and understand the pattern more. All of that kind of rethinking, looking at the pattern, the issue, me, my history, took up a lot of time. It was a lot of activity and sometimes interesting, but it's an illusion of progress because none of it actually brought me any closer to movement in the direction around these things. And here's what I began to discover. It wasn't the pattern that needed my attention. It wasn't the issue that needed my attention. It wasn't the past that needed my attention. It wasn't the story of myself and all of that needed my attention. What was asking to be met fully, openly, willingly was the feeling. The feeling itself, not the story of the feeling, not the narrative about it. Like the mind is going to be, has all sorts of answers and is trying to help us and trying to figure it out. But really what I started to get curious about is, what if I just sat with and met the feeling? What if I started to give presence to the resistance, to the feeling, rather than trying to solve it or overcome it? A few years ago, a good friend of mine started talking about that idea of having more of a direct experience to life. And she makes this great distinction between what's actually happening in life right here, right now, and then there's what's happening in our minds. And she talks about it as imagination. And that distinction really spoke to me in the way of the desire I had to feel more alive in life, to lean into the full range of the human experience, to not shy away from feeling, but to embrace it all and let that aliveness expand my world. And so when she started talking about that, it really struck me. And through her guidance and other friends, we've had these great explorations. It started to look to me like, yeah, what if the way my mind wants to step in is just a protective mechanism? And part of what I'm learning to cultivate within myself or become more available to is the direct experience of the moment, whatever that is. If it's expansion, if it's love, if it's connection, if it's fear, if it's tension, if it's shame, like what if I didn't need the mind to direct those moments and I could just be with it and give full presence to myself? The mind is going to start interpreting. It's going to try and be helpful. It's going to have a narration about it. It's going to have evidence. It's going to be doing its thing. But could I give less attention to what the mind was doing and more attention to what was happening in the body and in the felt sense of what was going on? Could I get comfortable sitting with the anxiety or the tension or numb? Could I get comfortable sitting with the resistance, not to solve it and not to direct it? What might I learn if I just allowed myself to be with the direct experience that was happening in real time rather than trying to rush through it or thinking that the mind really needed to be in charge of it? And what would happen if I stopped thinking I needed to be protected? Like, it wasn't a conscious thought, right? Like, our brains are brilliant. And it's happened so fast for all of us. We can start to feel something uncomfortable, and then we are, like, unconsciously most of the time just already in the mind analyzing, sorting, what is this? But as I started to get more attuned to that distinction, my own curiosity was like, wonder what would happen if I didn't do that as much. Wonder what would happen if I allowed myself and intentionally began to open up to what was happening in the moment versus trying to change it, fix it, do something about it. And so that shift and openness and willingness began to show me so much. I started to see that's what wanted to be met. That what wanted to wake up inside of me, what wants to wake up inside of you, where we desire more freedom, internal freedom, more liberation, is in those ideas, conditioning, thought patterns, nervous system responses that constrict, that tighten. Can we see them for what they are? Can we be with it? When we give our full presence to it, we recognize it's just energy moving through us. And if we didn't, have to draw conclusions about ourselves or about the sensation, we begin to see our presence, giving our presence to it, it shifts it. It shifts and reorganizes us inside. It opens, it relaxes our body. It wakes up more of a felt experience of our okayness. What we start to see is our knowing that we're okay no matter what, the knowing of our wholeness, the knowing that we have what it takes to grow, to stretch, to try new things. That knowing comes in the day-to-day felt experience of it. So in those moments when we give full presence to whatever's happening in that, the fear response, the freeze response, the moment when we notice we rush to our mind, can we bring our attention back down into the sensation within the body and see what's available to us by giving full presence to it? I mean, it's really, if you think about it, it's not much different than you might give to a friend or to a partner or to your children. Those moments when it just occurs to us to be with them, to just give them presence, or someone does that for us, we know how healing it is, how it changes, it shifts something within us. And so that's this piece. It's like, how do we give that to ourselves? So can we first see how we might be rushing to the mind to fix, to drive, to organize, to, control? because some part of us feels like whatever's happening in that moment might be risky or might be uncomfortable. But when we give presence, we feel it, we see it, we experience it. It shifts things. We don't collapse. We don't try and bypass it by getting in a better feeling or changing our thinking about it or convincing ourselves. It happens in the moment. We just sit with, we feel the protection, we feel the numbness, we sit with the numbness, we feel the desire, we feel the aliveness, we feel the history, whatever might be there. And as we do this, what you discover as it shifts with presence, something else begins to happen. It might be small, it might be quiet, and it might be more dramatic. But the edges soften and the path begins to open. We find it's easier to begin moving. There's more of a natural movement begins to happen, or we start to realize like, oh, I'm just more open. I'm trying things that, 2 days ago I was judging myself because I wasn't doing. And this is where transformation happens, where awakening, not the pushing, not the analysis, not the self-talk, but presence. And honoring what's real, what's here in the moment, and allowing ourselves to be with it, with all of it, to build our capacity to give that presence to ourselves. And in that, the edges fall away. In that, the edges begin to soften, evolve. We can have a sense of the fear or the tightening or the resistance, but at the same time, we can feel into the natural desire, the natural energy, the life force, the creative intelligence, the impulse that's encouraging us to move forward. So I want to invite you, can you stay present enough at the edge with yourself? Can you be with all of it? And also, what inside of you is inviting you to that place right now? What's inviting you to the edge? Is there a want, a desire, a longing that's asking you to meet it with presence rather than pressure, to meet it with your presence rather than your mind, to allow yourself to drop in and welcome what wants to evolve in us, what wants to be awakened in us, what wants to fall away in us. Identities begin to fall away, old ideas about what's possible. That happens all naturally via presence. So thank you, as always, for being here. I'm so grateful to you, and I look forward to hearing what happens for you, what you begin to see as you become open to what the want is asking of you. If you know anyone that would benefit from this conversation, please share it. Thank you. As always, thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean a lot to us if you could take a moment to first subscribe and follow wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Hitting the follow button means you'll never miss a show. All you have to do is hit the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you like what you're hearing, we'd appreciate you taking a moment to give us a shout out and review. Most importantly, however, if you know anyone that would benefit from this episode, please pass it along. And finally, if you'd like to learn more about my work, Innerverse Academy, or upcoming events, you can check out my website at barbarapatterson.com. You'll find some great resources, classes, and videos, and a lot more. Thank you again for being here. See you next time.